suffered from a neurological disorder called, forgive me for my pronunciation of this, Guillain-Barré syndrome. They believe that when he died, he was actually just paralysed and mentally aware. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced. It looks French, but I think that's how it's pronounced. You know, they talk about those things that are like your worst nightmare. That's probably one of my worst nightmares. Number 3. There were female gladiators in ancient Rome. A female gladiator was called a Galatrix. They were extremely rare, unlike their male counterparts. Go women. I would not want to be a gladiator, so fair play to those that didn't, but I'm glad that someone was out there representing the girls. There should be. And that's not something that's talked about often. The world's most successful pirate in history was a lady named Ching Shi. I can't speak today apparently. Shi. She was a prostitute in China until the commander of the Red Flag Fleet bought and married her. But her husband considered her his equal, and she became an active pirate commander in his fleet. Her story is really interesting. If that interests you, you should really look into her. What a woman. So interesting. She did a lot in her time, and yeah, crazy. History does erase a lot of women's history, and that's one of those things. They make you think that some of the pirates that were the big man with a big beard, they're the ones that were the most successful, but actually not. Number 5. You may know them as the bunch of heroes that broke box office records with their movies, but the Avengers was also a group of Jewish assassins who hunted Nazi war criminals after World War II. They poisoned physician named John Cook. It wasn't popularized as a condiment until the late 19th century. Number 10. Did you know Abraham Lincoln is in the Wrestling Hall of Fame? The 6'4" president had only one loss among his around 300 contests. He earned a reputation for this in New Salem, Illinois, as an elite fighter. Number 11. George Washington opened a whiskey distillery after his presidency. After his term, Washington opened a whiskey distillery. By 1799, Washington's distillery was the largest in the country, producing 11,000 gallons of unaged whiskey. Do you think he liked whiskey by some chance? Number 12. During the Salem witch trials, the accused witches weren't actually burned at the stake. The majority were jailed and some were hanged, but none of the 2,000 people accused ever got burned alive. The Salem witch trials are also a very interesting bit of history if you're looking at a different bit of history to get, to have a look at. It's really interesting. President Zachary Taylor died from a cherry overdose. Zachary Taylor passed away after eating way too many cherries and drinking milk at a 4th of July party in 1850. He died on July the 9th from gastroenteritis. The acid in cherries, along with the milk, is believed to have caused this. Cherries, 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 cherries. Don't have too much of them, clearly. Number 14. Andrew Jackson had a pet parrot, and he taught his parrot Polly to curse like a sailor. There is even one legend that the parrot had to be taken out of Jackson's funeral for its proclivity for profanity. Number 15. The Bloody Mary wasn't always called Bloody Mary. First, the popular brunch drink was actually called a bucket of blood. 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 Bucket of blood. A bucket of blood. A bucket of blood. After bucket of blood, it transitioned to red snapper. Red snapper. Red snapper. Red snapper. And finally settled on Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary. 16. In the ancient Olympics, athletes performed naked. This was to achieve closeness to the gods and also help detox their skin through sweating. In fact, the word gymnastics comes from the ancient Greek word gymnasia, which means athletic training or exercise, and gymnos, which is naked. Number 17. In 1386, a pig was executed in France. In the Middle Ages, the pig attacked a child who went to die later from their wounds. The pig was arrested, kept in prison, and then sent to court where it stood trial for murder, was found guilty, and then executed by hanging. Number 18. During the Great Depression, people made clothes out of food snacks. People used flour bags, potato snacks, and anything made out of burlap. Because of this trend, food distributors started to make their sacks more colourful to help people remain a little bit fashionable. I love that. Add a bit of colour in, just to make people feel a bit better. dress their newly deceased relatives in their best clothing and then put them in life like Moses and photograph them. They did this to preserve one last image of their dead loved one. Number 20. The shortest war in history lasted just 38 minutes. It was between Britain and Zanzibar and is known as the Anglo-Zanzibar War. This war occurred on August the 27th, 1896. It was over the ascension of the next Sultan in Zanzibar and resulted in a British victory. As someone that's British, in English specifically, I'm very sorry for all the wars that we caused back in the day. We really like to go to war for some reason. Number 21. Tug of war used to be an Olympic sport. It was part of the Olympic schedule between 1900 and 1920 and occurred at 5 different Summer Olympic Games. The nation to win the most medals in this was Britain with 5 medals and the USA with 3. We do like our tug of war here, to be fair. 22. The University of Oxford is older than the Aztec Empire. The University of Oxford first opened its doors to students all the way back in 1096. By comparison, the Aztec Empire is said to have originated with the founding of the city of, again I can't say this, apologies, Tenochtitlan, I don't know, at Lake Texcoco by the Mexico, which occurred in the year 1325. So like 200 and a bit years later. Crazy. Oxford University is beautiful, by the way, if you ever get the chance to go. It's really lovely. The most famous female serial killer was a Hungarian countess, Elizabeth Bathory d'Exced. She was accused of torturing and killing over 650 young women. Most of them were between the ages of 10 and 14. 24. Russia ran out of vodka celebrating the end of World War II. When the long war ended, street parties engulfed the Soviet Union, lasting for days until all of the nation's vodka reserves ran out a mere 22 hours after the partying started. Is that where vodka came from? Is that why we all know that they're obsessed with vodka? I do quite like vodka, to be fair. I do have quite a bit in my cupboard right now. 25. The first official medals of honor were awarded during the American Civil War. They were awarded to Union soldiers who participated elsewhere, but I have heard of that before. 31. British poet and politician Lord Byron kept a pet bear in his dormitory while studying at Cambridge. Known for being an avid animal lover, when he found out he couldn't bring his dog, he decided to bring a tame bear to live with him on campus instead. He was even known to take it on walks with a leash. Bit crazy. We also don't have bears here, so we'd have had to bring one over. Oh well, we did have bears a long time ago, so I don't know if we still had them by the time the Lord Byron was around though. Number 32. For over 30 years, Canada and Denmark have been playfully fighting for control of a tiny, tiny island near Greenland called Hans Island. Once in a while, when officials from each country visit, they leave a bottle of their country's liquor as a power move. Number 33. As St. Lawrence was roasted on a gridiron by the prefect of Rome during the persecution of Christians, legend said he cheerfully declared, "I'm well done on this side, turn me over." Because of this, he derives his patronage of cooks, chefs, and comedians. In 1998, 1,200 bones from some 10 human bodies were found in the basement of Ben Franklin's house. Before you go crafting a murder mystery about the founding father, no, it was revealed that the bodies were used in the study of human anatomy. Anatomy. 35. The tallest married couple ever recorded was Anna Haining Swan, who was 7'11", and Martin Van Buren Bates, who was 7'9", as in feet. 7'9", 7'11". When she gave birth, Swan's baby was 22 pounds. That's a big baby. That's some very tall people. In 1945, a balloon bomb launched by Japan landed in Oregon. It fell upon a woman and 5 children who died when it exploded. These were the only World War II casualties on US soil. Number 37. Roman gladiators often became celebrities even in Masonic Society was reportedly active until 1902. So over 100 years. 43. King Henry VIII of England had servants who were called grooms of Snow, whose job was to wipe his bottom after he went to the bathroom. During his reign, he had all of those four such people knighted. As he should, that's gross. 14 years before the infamous Titanic sank, author Morgan Robertson wrote the novella. Hey, why do you think we're called Novella? Blame me here. Novella. Futility. It was about the large, unsinkable ship, Titan, hitting an iceberg in the northern Atlantic. What's even weirder is the Titanic and the fictional Titan did not have enough lifeboats for the thousands of passengers on board. Coincidence? 45. Between the 11th and the 19th centuries, a number of Buddhist monks successfully mummified themselves. They adopted a practice called Sokishinbutsu. I'm sorry, that was so bad. I have no idea how you say that. In which they gradually weaned themselves on food and water and essentially starved themselves to death over the course of 1,000 days. It was believed that by successfully mummifying themselves, the monks would achieve true enlightenment. The ancient Romans often used stale urine as mouthwash. The main ingredient in urine, not going to say urine, is ammonia, which acts as a powerful cleaning agent. Urine became so in demand that Romans who traded in it actually had to pay a tax. While in power, Pope Gregory the 9th, I think that is, I'm trying to remember my Roman numerals here, declared that cats were to be associated with devil worship and had them exterminated. Some believed that the disappearance of those cats helped rats spread the bubonic plague, aka the Black Death, that killed millions of people in the 1300s. Number 48. Rasputin, a Russian mystic and friend to Tsar Nicholas II, reportedly survived being poisoned, shot and stabbed numerous times before he was finally drowned in the Volga River. I know there's a Rasputin song that everyone knows, but again, another really interesting bit of history. There is a show on Netflix called The Last Tsars. Highly recommend. Very good. From the 1940s to the 1970s, Yale plus other Ivy League schools like Harvard, Vassar and Brown required their freshmen to pose nude for a photo shoot. The goal was to gather material for a massive study into how rickets developed, and that involved sticking pins to the back of the subjects, male and female. Generations of the country's elite who went to the Ivy League's posed in the archives included naked photos of well-known figures ranging from George W. Bush, Hillary Clinton, and Meryl Streep. The photos were destroyed after news leaked, and the study was denounced. The loved waffle had a master interrogator, Hans Schwartz. successful that the US military later incorporated his methods into their own interrogation schools. In ancient Asia, death by elephant was a popular form of execution. They could be taught to slowly break bones, crush skulls, twist off limbs, or even execute people using large blades fitted to their tusks. In some parts of Asia, this method of execution was still popular up to the late 19th century. Using forks used to be seen as sacrilegious. The widely used eating utensils were once seen as blasphemous and an offense to God. Why? Because they were artificial hands, and as such were considered to be sacrilegious. 53. Mary indeed had a little lamb. Her name was Mary Sawyer. She was an 11-year-old girl who lived in Boston and one day was followed to school by her pet lamb. In the late 1860s, she helped raise money for an old church by selling wool from the lamb. Back in the 16th century, the wealthy elite used to eat dead bodies. It was rumoured that cadavers could cure diseases, the highest delicacy. Egyptian mummies. Not weird at all. Winston Churchill typically smoked 8 to 10 cigars a day, sometimes as much as 15. During the American Prohibition, he would get a doctor's note saying he should drink indefinite amounts of alcohol when he would come and visit the States. 56. 100 million years ago, the Sahara Desert was inhabited by galloping crocodiles. Back then, the Sahara Desert was a lush oasis full of life and full of predators. In 2009, fossil hunters found the remains of crocodiles that had large land-going legs that were capable of galloping across the land at breakneck speeds. Before the 19th century, dentures were made from dead soldiers' teeth. After the Battle of Waterloo, dentists ran to the battlefield to seek out teeth from thousands of dead soldiers. They then took their bounty to the dental practices and grafted them into dentures for the toothless elite. Roman Emperor, known as Caligula, made one of his favourite horses a senator. The emperor loved his horse, named Insatus. I'm really bad with saying these things, I'm really sorry. So much that he gave him a marble stall, an ivory manger, a jewelled collar, and even a house. Caligula also, that's a really cool actually word, Caligula. Also allegedly planned to make his trusty steed consul before his assassination. Sure, we've all heard of the Boston Tea Party, but what about the Boston molasses disaster? On January the 15th, 1919, a 90-foot wide cast iron tank filled to the brim with sticky molasses exploded and spilled 2.5 million gallons of crude molasses into the streets of Boston. The brown stuff ran through the streets like a tsunami, with 15-foot high waves reaching speeds of 35 miles per hour. The molasses demolished everything in its path, toppling buildings and drowning horses, and eventually killing 21 and injuring 150. comes elsewhere where Jefferson lives, unaware that his old friend had died earlier that day. Joan of Arc convinced Charles VII she could lead his armies with no experience. She routed the English and survived a 60-foot escape leap from a tower uninjured, was falsely accused of hearsay and burned at the stake, all between the ages of 17 and 19. She was guided by voices only she could hear. Crazy. The sound made by the Krakatoa volcanic eruption in 1883 was so loud it ruptured the eardrums of people 40 miles away, and it travelled round the world 4 times. It was clearly heard 3,000 miles away. That's like standing in New York and hearing a sound from San Francisco. The South African Railway once employed a baboon. In his 8 years of service, he never made a single mistake. My question is, what exactly did he do? I want to know all of his tricks and tips. 66. The Tale of Two Lovers, an erotic novel, was one of the best-selling books of the 15th century. It was written by Pope Pius II before he assumed the papacy. 67. It's believed that roughly 97% of history has been lost over time. Written accounts of history only started roughly 6,000 years ago. Modern humans first appeared around 200,000 years ago. Before Julius Caesar invaded Britain, many Romans didn't believe it existed. Julius Caesar was the first ever Roman to invade Britain. He did it twice in the years of 55 and 54 BC. Some Romans believed Britain to be just the foot of another huge northern continent. Others thought it was a place full of unbelievable riches, whilst most thought it just didn't exist. Believe me, we're here. We are here. 69. The Soviet Union tried to snuff out the memory of Genghis Khan during the Soviet-era rule of the late 20th century. Simply mentioning the great Mongolian conqueror's name was a crime against the USSR. The Soviets removed his story from school textbooks and outlawed pilgrimages to his birthplace of Khenti. The guillotine was invented to create equality in execution. Until its widespread use, the regular methods of execution in France were rather savage. Punishment, like being drawn and quartered, was common. The idea to use the guillotine as the main method of execution was part of the movement for equality in France that spurred on the revolution. Can you hear the people singing the songs of agreement? How many music references can I make in this video? Adolf Hitler helped design the Volkswagen Beetle later known as William Patrick Stewart Houston, was drafted into the United States Navy, where he served as a hospital corpsman throughout the war until 1947. He was wounded in action and was awarded the Purple Heart and went on to gain American citizenship. The fastest surgeon ever ended up causing a 300% mortality rate. Shocking, right? Surgeon Robert Liston was considered the fastest knife in the West. He was a pioneer of speed surgery. When performing a battlefield amputation in front of a group of spectators, Liston cut through the patient's leg so quickly that he accidentally cut the fingers off the person who was helping him. One man who witnessed the surgery collapsed and died of a heart attack. Then Liston's patient and his assistant died of blood poisoning from their joint amputation, making him the only surgeon in history to have a 300% mortality rate. There were dance marathons during the Great Depression. These human endurance contests served as a way of giving financially unstable. Sorry about that. If you could hear that. Financially unstable married couples a roof over their head and food to eat for a few days. The dance partners would take turns sleeping while the other propped them up and continued dancing with them. 79. One in 200 men are direct descendants of Genghis Khan. The Mongolian emperor was known for siring at least 11 children. Scientists conducted a study in 2003 that showed that 1 in 200 men share a Y chromosome with the conqueror. 80. In the Victorian era, men with moustaches used special cups, pragmatically called moustache cups. These specially made mugs had guards on them which prevented a man's moustache from tipping into their warm cup of tea. 46 BC was 445 days long and is the longest year in human history. Nicknamed the Year of Confusion, this year had 2 extra leap months inserted by Julius Caesar. This was in order to make his newly formed Julian calendar match up with the seasonal year. Back in colonial America, slaves could win their freedom through lawsuits, although there was a low chance of succeeding. Winning in court meant that the slave was now a citizen. Since slaves often didn't have last names needing a new last name to be a citizen, they were often just given the last name of Freeman. I've heard quite a few stories about slaves being liberated. It's very interesting. I heard some podcasts and stuff about it. Some of the lawsuits and things, it's very interesting. If you don't know much about the history, you should have a look into it. The Leaning Tower of Pisa was never straight, known for its 4-degree lean. This Italian bell tower was constructed in the 12th century. When construction on the second story started, the tower started to lean due to the unstable ground it was built on. Iceland has the world's oldest parliament in history, called the Althing. It was established in 930, and has stayed as the acting parliament of Iceland since then. 85. Alexander the Great named over 70 cities after himself. Alexander the Great conquered over 200 million square miles of the Earth's surface, all by the time he was 30, so naming cities after himself was much deserved. Cleopatra was the first member of her dynasty to speak ancient Egyptian. She was also able to speak 8 other languages, including ancient Greek, ancient National School Lunch Program of 1946 was due to World War II. This is due to the fact that the government realised by giving the children free meals, they would have a healthier draft pool if they ever needed it again. I think that says everything you need to know, doesn't it, really? Not because children need food, but because they'll have a healthier pool of, people to draft if they are needed. Paul Tibbets, pilot of the Enola Gay, the plane that dropped the first nuclear bomb on Hiroshima, there we go, say it properly, didn't have a funeral or headstone. When he was close to death, Tibbets decided he didn't want a funeral or a headstone, as he worried it would become a place for protesting nuclear armament. Instead, he was cremated and his ashes were scattered over the English Channel. In medieval England, the word ask was pronounced axe. This pronunciation of the word was even featured in the first English translation of the Bible. Axe, and it shall be given. Let's see if some water will help. In 1710, Native American leaders travelled to Britain to visit Queen Anne. The four Mohawk kings from one of the Iroquois confederacies of 5 nations in the Ingoliquan, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say any of these words, peoples were treated with high honour as diplomats, transported through the streets of London in royal carriages. They were personally met by the Queen herself and the court of St. James Palace. The 7.62mm rifle bullet was created 129 years ago. The AK-47 ammunition was developed by the Russian Empire in 1891, originally designed for the Mosin Nagant bolt-action rifle. This ammunition is still in use today. 92. Shakespeare originated the Yo Mama joke. In his play, Titus, one of the characters, Charon explains, "Thou hast undone our mother," to which another character, Aaron, replies, "Villain, I have done thy mother." Hollywood moved from New York to Los Angeles to escape Edison's patents. Thomas Edison had patents on over 1,000 different things, including most of the technology needed to make high-end movies. So independent filmmakers moved to California, an area of the country where the judges weren't as friendly to Edison and his patents. 94. Charles Darwin invented his own wheeled office chair. The famous researcher found that in his study area he would have to go through the rigmarole of walking about the office from bench to bench, desk to desk. So to maximize his productivity and save him some valuable study time, he decided to attach wheels to his luxurious armchair. 95. The Circus Maximum in Rome is still the largest capacity sports arena ever built. It was used for the execution of prisoners, part of the Roman triumph, and chariot racing. Historians believe the Circus Maximum could hold between 150,000 and 250,000 people at any given time. exploitation of their neighbours, the Helots. When a Spartan boy reached adulthood and became a man, the Spartan state awarded him with an allotment of public farmland. They also rewarded him with a constituent of Helot slaves to work it. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs used their slaves as fly catchers. They would lather their slaves in honey, which would attract any flies to their slaves rather than themselves, as well as trap and kill the flies. Can you imagine being lathered in honey, ugh, and then flies? Gross. During a Roman triumph, soldiers sang lewd songs about their commanders to amuse the crowds. A Roman triumph was kind of like a parade, where a Roman general and his army would march through the streets, celebrating that they conquered a new territory for Rome. There were many celebratory customs that occurred during a triumph, one of which was the returning Roman soldiers to sing crude and banter-like chants about their commanders for the amusement of the crowds. 99. Despite the legend, George Washington didn't have wooden teeth. The first American president had luxury dentures that were made out of gold, lead, and ivory, as well as being a mixture of animal and human teeth. And then finally, number 100. The term saved by the bell does not originate from people being buried alive because of bells attached to coffins back in the day. People wrongly assume that the term saved by the bell comes from people being saved by these coffin bells. However, the term actually comes from boxing.